There are moments in life when you think you've seen it all. And then the person you love the most opens their mouth and shatters everything you believed in. That was the night my wife, Amanda, looked me dead in the eye and said the words that would end us forever. Started like any other evening. I came home after another grueling day at the firm, briefcase in one hand, a grocery bag in the other, because I remembered she liked that specific brand of ice cream. She was on the couch, phone glued to her hand, thumbs dancing. She didn't even glance up when I walked in. I greeted her. Nothing. I set the groceries down louder than I needed to. Still nothing. Finally, I asked, half joking, "Lose your voice or just forgot I exist?" That's when she sighed, loud, dramatic, like I was some annoying, buzzing mosquito she couldn't quite swat away. "I'm tired of this," she muttered without looking up. "Tired of what?" I asked, genuinely confused. This life, this boring marriage. You." My heart dropped into my stomach. Amanda, my Amanda, the woman I'd spent 10 years building a life with, just tossed those words out like trash. I stood there, frozen, waiting for her to laugh and say she was kidding. She didn't. She finally set her phone down and turned to face me. "I've been thinking," she said with a chilling calmness. "We can either do things my way, or you can suffer." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she said, standing up. "I want freedom. I want fun. I'm tired of pretending to be this perfect housewife. You either accept it and let me live how I want, or you'll find out what real suffering is." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What does that even mean, Amanda?" I asked. My voice was even, but my hands were trembling. "It means," she said, stepping closer, "I'm going to see other people. I'm going to live my life, and you're going to smile and nod and be grateful I'm still here at all. Otherwise," she let the threat hang in the air like a guillotine blade hovering over my neck. For a long moment, I just stared at her. I thought of the nights I stayed late to get promoted so we could afford the house she wanted. I thought of the vacations I planned, the anniversary dinners, the little notes I left for her to find. I thought of the years I had defended her against friends who said she was selfish, blind to her faults because I loved her. And now she was standing there telling me, "Submit or suffer." Something inside me cracked. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even raise my voice. I simply walked to the bedroom, packed a duffel bag with a few essentials, grabbed my wallet and keys, and headed for the door. She didn't stop me. She didn't even flinch. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, I heard her voice, casual, almost amused. "You'll be back. They always come back." I didn't even turn around. I walked out the door, and I swear, the second it closed behind me, I felt lighter than I had in years. But Amanda had no idea. She had just lit the fuse on a bomb that would explode her entire world. Because when I walk away, I don't look back and I don't play fair. The first night away from Amanda, I booked a cheap room at an extended stay hotel on the other side of town. It wasn't much. Dim lighting, suspicious stains on the carpet, but it was mine. No glares, no passive-aggressive sighs, no ultimatums. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my work clothes, just breathing, feeling the strange emptiness seep into my bones. Freedom wasn't exhilarating like I had imagined it would be. It was hollow, bittersweet, almost painful. For hours, I sat there replaying everything in my mind. Every sarcastic comment, every eye roll, every time she dismissed my feelings like they were jokes. How long had she been planning this? How long had she been treating me like a convenience instead of a husband? I stared at my wedding ring and realized it didn't mean anything anymore. It was just a cold, circular reminder of a lie. Around midnight, I got a text from her. Not an apology, not even a question about where I was. It simply said, "Hope you're enjoying the couch life. Maybe it'll teach you to appreciate me." I didn't respond. I powered off the phone and tossed it across the room. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in years. I needed time. Time to think, to breathe, to plan. Because one thing was certain. I wasn't crawling back to Amanda. She had chosen this war. I was going to show her exactly what real suffering looked like. Not with shouting, not with violence, but with something far more devastating. I started by quietly removing myself from our shared accounts. Bank accounts, subscription services, utilities, anything that had my name on it. I visited the bank in person, explaining that I wanted to freeze joint access until certain legal matters were resolved. I was polite, professional. The banker didn't ask questions. I left with the paperwork signed and a strange satisfaction building inside me. Meanwhile, I reached out to a lawyer, an old college buddy who owed me a favor. When I told him the situation, he didn't hesitate. She threatens you, tells you to accept her cheating, and you're still this calm? He asked, half laughing, half in disbelief. I'm done playing nice, I said simply. That night, while I was organizing documents, I got another text from Amanda. This one was different. Since you're being stubborn, I'm going out tonight. Don't wait up. Attached was a photo. A full-body mirror selfie of her in a little black dress, the kind she hadn't worn for me in years. Lipstick, high heels, hair curled, everything perfect. She looked ready for someone else. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not with jealousy, not with regret, with clarity. She wasn't trying to win me back. She was trying to humiliate me, to break me. Instead, she gave me the final push I needed. I emailed my lawyer and told him to proceed with the next phase. Amanda thought she had all the power. She had no idea I had been gathering silent weapons while she was busy playing games. Documents, screenshots, financial records, messages she forgot I had access to. This wasn't going to be a fight. This was going to be an execution. And Amanda, she hadn't even begun to suffer yet. 2 nights after Amanda sent that smug photo, I heard through mutual friends that she had been spotted at a trendy bar downtown. Not alone. Apparently, she wasn't wasting any time living her so-called new life. I wasn't surprised. Amanda was always the type who needed an audience for her rebellion. Private betrayal wasn't enough. She wanted it to be a spectacle. Meanwhile, I moved into a temporary furnished apartment a few miles away. Clean, modest, and best of all, peaceful. No more silent treatments, no more manipulative games. Just me, a mattress, and my plans. Every evening after work, I would sit at the kitchen table, sifting through years of financial documents and gathering every shred of evidence I needed. Amanda had been careless, very careless. Credit card statements revealed luxury purchases she had hidden from me for months. Spa retreats, jewelry, expensive dinners, all charged to our joint account. And then the real jackpot. An Uber receipt that showed she had taken a ride from our home to a man's apartment several times at midnight. Same address, same name attached to payment requests for food deliveries she had ordered late at night. A man I had never met, but whose name I would never forget. In the end, she made it too easy. With everything documented, I instructed my lawyer to file for divorce, but not quietly. We would serve her publicly, at her workplace. She thought she was living her best life. I would make sure she experienced her downfall in the most humiliating way possible. No yelling, no dramatic confrontations, just cold, calculated reality slamming into her perfect fantasy. The morning we finalized the paperwork, I woke up early. There was a certain thrill in knowing that by noon, Amanda's carefully constructed world would start to crumble. Meanwhile, she had no clue. She was still sending me petty texts. You can come back whenever you grow up. Maybe I'll let you watch one day. Winky face. Don't be bitter. I deserve to be happy. Each message was like gasoline poured on the fire already raging inside me. But I stayed silent. The best revenge wasn't anger. It was indifference. It was letting her burn herself without even lifting a finger. Around lunchtime, I got the call from my lawyer. It's done, he said simply. How'd she take it? I asked almost lazily. He laughed under his breath. Publicly, very publicly. Let's just say the HR department had a front row seat. I hung up the phone and leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. For the first time in months, I smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile. It was the smile of a man finally free from a prison he didn't realize he had been locked in for years. Later that night, I checked my old email out of curiosity. Hundreds of messages. Amanda had erupted the moment the papers hit her desk. Threats, insults, desperate pleas. You're ruining everything. How could you do this to me after everything we built? You're nothing without me. The irony wasn't lost on me. She threw me away like garbage, demanded I accept her betrayal, and now she was acting like I was the villain. It was laughable, sad even, but I wasn't laughing. I was already planning my next move. Something that would leave no doubt, even in her deluded mind, that when I walked away, I meant it. Because Amanda had made a critical mistake. She thought I needed her. She thought I would crawl. She thought she could say, submit or suffer, and that I would bow my head like a beaten dog. Instead, she was about to learn what suffering really looked like, and I wasn't even close to finished. Amanda wasn't used to losing. In our entire relationship, she had always held the upper hand, manipulating situations until she got her way. Whether it was choosing where we lived, who we socialized with, or even what color car we bought, it was always her decisions disguised as compromises. And for years, I let her have that control because I thought that's what love was. Sacrificing a little here and there to make your partner happy. But now that she realized she couldn't guilt, threaten, or seduce me back into submission, Amanda became unhinged. 2 days after the public serving of the divorce papers, she showed up uninvited at my new apartment. I heard the knock, then the pounding, then the screaming. At first, I thought about ignoring her, letting her humiliate herself in front of the neighbors, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door just a crack, enough to see her standing there, mascara-dyed, makeup smeared, wearing a hoodie that probably belonged to her latest conquest. "You're seriously doing this?" she hissed. "You're just going to throw everything away like it meant nothing?" I didn't answer. I didn't owe her an answer. I just stood there, watching as she went through every stage of grief at once. Denial, anger, bargaining, all wrapped up in one toxic package. "You know you can't survive without me," she sneered. "You're nothing on your own." I smiled politely, that same smile that used to drive her crazy because she could never tell what I was thinking. Then, without a word, I closed the door in her face. She stood there, screaming and banging for a few more minutes, before eventually stomping off. I watched through the peephole as she got into an Uber, no doubt heading off to another bar. Another bad decision. That was the moment I realized Amanda didn't love me. She loved controlling me. And now, without that control, she was spiraling. In the days that followed, the unraveling continued. She sent long, rambling emails blaming me for everything wrong in her life. She called my workplace, trying to warn my boss about how unstable I was, a pathetic attempt to ruin my reputation. She even posted vague, melodramatic statuses on social media about being betrayed and losing everything to a heartless monster, fishing for sympathy from people who didn't know the real story. But the real blow came when I made one final move that she never anticipated. See, while Amanda had been busy parading around town, acting like a teenager on spring break, she forgot about the mortgage payments, forgot about the car loan, forgot about the fact that the credit cards she maxed out were still tied to her name. She thought walking away from responsibility would be easy. She thought the world would just keep handing her a free ride. She was wrong. Through my lawyer, I shifted full liability for the remaining debts onto her. Legally, cleanly, surgically. She had to refinance everything in her own name or lose it. And with her shallow credit score, her poor financial management, and her new reputation after the HR incident, the banks weren't exactly lining up to help her. Within a month, she lost the house. The car got repossessed. Creditors started hunting her down like a pack of wolves. Amanda went from sipping martinis and laughing at my expense to living in a rundown apartment with 2 roommates half her age, working a dead-end job just to keep the lights on. The woman who once mocked me for being boring and predictable now spent her nights begging friends for rides and her weekends selling secondhand designer clothes on Facebook Marketplace. And through it all, I didn't lift a finger. I didn't send a nasty text. I didn't post a vindictive comment online. I simply lived my life, quietly, peacefully, successfully. Because when you take away everything a manipulator uses to control you, they don't know how to exist anymore. They collapse under the weight of their own delusions. Amanda had wanted me to submit or suffer. Instead, I walked away, and she suffered all by herself. But as satisfying as it was to watch from a distance, I knew this wasn't the end. No, Amanda still had one final humiliation to endure, and it would be more devastating than anything she had ever imagined. It had been a few months since Amanda's life began to unravel, and I'll admit, a small part of me thought she might eventually find a way to land on her feet. She had always been a survivor. After all, someone who could lie, charm, and manipulate her way out of any mess. But this time was different. She wasn't just facing angry creditors and awkward conversations with friends. She was facing the raw consequences of her own selfishness, and it was tearing her apart from the inside out. She tried dating again, of course. Her social media was a highlight reel of desperation. Staged selfies at cheap restaurants, filtered photos with random men whose names she probably forgot by morning. She wanted the world to believe she was thriving. But behind the fake smiles and overexposed images, the truth was obvious. She was flailing. Meanwhile, I quietly thrived. I focused on my career, landed a promotion, and moved into a beautiful condo overlooking the river. I reconnected with friends she had pushed away during our marriage. I spent weekends hiking, traveling, living the life she once mocked as boring. Every day that passed without her in it felt like breathing cleaner air. Still, I knew Amanda. Her pride wouldn't allow her to stay silent forever. I expected the call. What I didn't expect was how pathetic it would be. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the city skyline, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I almost ignored it, but something in my gut told me to answer. I picked up and said nothing. I didn't have to. First, there was silence. Then a small, broken voice whispered, "Please, can we talk?" It was Amanda, not the Amanda who had sneered and taunted and played games. This Amanda sounded shattered, like a shell of the woman she once was. I stayed silent. "I made mistakes," she continued, her voice trembling. "I didn't know what I was doing. I thought you'd always be there." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "I lost everything," she sobbed. "The house, the car, my friends. They all turned their backs on me. I don't have anyone left." There was the real reason for her call. Not love, not regret, loneliness. She didn't miss me. She missed the stability, the comfort, the easy life she had thrown away without a second thought. I need someone," she whispered. "Please, can we at least meet?" I let the silence hang in the air long enough for her to taste it. Then I spoke, my voice calm and even. "You made your choice, Amanda. Remember? You said, submit or suffer. Well, how's that working out for you?" There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. She tried to speak, but no words came out. For once, Amanda had nothing to say. No clever retort, no manipulation. Just raw, undeniable defeat. I ended the call without another word. That night, as I stood on my balcony watching the city lights flicker, I felt something unexpected. Not triumph, not bitterness, freedom. I had finally closed the chapter that should have ended years ago. Amanda thought I would crawl back. She thought I would forgive the unforgivable. She thought she could tear me apart and then demand I put myself back together for her convenience. Instead, she destroyed herself piece by piece, lie by lie, and I had simply stepped aside and let her. But what Amanda didn't know was that the biggest blow was still coming. Because soon, everyone she still clung to for sympathy would find out the real truth about who she was and how low she had sunk. And when that happened, she would wish losing the house was her biggest problem. A few weeks after Amanda's desperate phone call, the final phase of her downfall began. Not by my hand, but by the very people she thought would shield her. Karma, it seemed, had been working overtime. It started with an unexpected message from Lisa, a woman Amanda used to call her best friend. Back when Amanda and I were still together, Lisa and her husband would come over for game nights and barbecues. I hadn't spoken to her since the divorce mess began, so when her name popped up in my inbox, I was curious. The message was short and brutal. "I thought you should know. Everyone knows the truth now. Amanda's lies caught up with her." I wasn't entirely sure what that meant until Lisa offered to meet for coffee. When we sat down, She pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots, dozens of them. Messages Amanda had sent to mutual friends, spinning wild stories about how I had been the abuser, how I had cheated, how I had forced her hand into finding love elsewhere. She had tried to rewrite history, but Amanda had underestimated one crucial thing. People talk. And when you lie to everyone, eventually the lies collide. Apparently, in her desperation to salvage her image, Amanda had told different versions of the story to different people. One friend was told I was a workaholic who neglected her. Another was told I was emotionally abusive. A third was told I was secretly cheating for years. And of course, the timelines didn't match. The details contradicted. The inconsistencies piled up until even her most loyal defenders began to question everything. The final straw came when Amanda drunkenly confessed at a party, boasting, thinking she was being funny, that she had been planning to replace me for over a year before she even gave the ultimatum, that she had backup plans, that she was proud of how easily she thought she could manipulate the situation to her advantage. Someone recorded it. The clip spread like wildfire. By the end of the week, Amanda was a social pariah. Her so-called friends ghosted her. Invitations dried up. The few who remained only did so out of morbid curiosity, waiting to see how much further she would fall. I didn't celebrate. I didn't dance on her grave. But I would be lying if I said it didn't feel like poetic justice. The woman who once stood in our living room, eyes full of contempt, telling me to submit or suffer, had now tasted real suffering, the kind no one else could save her from. And Amanda didn't handle it well. One night, another blocked call came through. This time, I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was broken, almost unrecognizable. "You win," she sobbed. "Is that what you wanted? Are you happy now? You destroyed me." I listened to the message once, then deleted it. Because the truth was, I hadn't destroyed her. I had simply refused to let her destroy me. Amanda destroyed herself with every lie, every betrayal, every arrogant decision. I had just chosen not to stand in the way while it happened. But there was still one final act in this tragic play, one last curtain call Amanda never expected, something that would leave her staring at the ruins of her life with nothing and no one left to blame. And soon it would be time for her to face it. It wasn't enough for Amanda to lose the house, the car, her friends, her dignity. There was still something left, something she clung to like a lifeline, something she thought could never be taken away, her reputation in her professional world. No matter how messy her personal life had gotten, Amanda believed she could salvage her career, rebuild her image at work, charm her way into another comfortable position. But Amanda had made another fatal miscalculation. She forgot how small our city really was. She forgot how many people she had burned on her way up. And worst of all, she forgot that some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. You see, Amanda worked in a field where connections were everything. Reputation meant more than skill. She depended heavily on referrals, glowing recommendations, and former colleagues vouching for her. And for a while, she kept up the facade, pretending she left her last job voluntarily, weaving stories about toxic workplaces and misunderstandings, until the truth caught up. One afternoon, my lawyer forwarded me a letter Amanda's former employer had sent him, a formal notice confirming that Amanda had not only been terminated for unprofessional behavior but was also under investigation for misappropriating company resources during her final months. Apparently, her late-night escapades with her new boyfriends weren't funded solely out of her own pocket. She had been expensing personal charges to the company credit card, luxury hotel rooms, spa treatments, dinners far outside business hours. When it all came to light, her former boss made it quietly known in the professional community. Amanda Sanders was not to be trusted. Without referrals, without a clean record, without anyone willing to stick their neck out for her, Amanda's career prospects evaporated. Jobs she once could have landed with a phone call now didn't even grant her an interview. Her once lavish lifestyle had already crumbled, but now the very foundation she thought she could rebuild on was gone. And here's where I made my final move, the one I had been saving for the perfect moment. I drafted a simple letter, no insults, no threats, no emotional outbursts, just facts. I wrote about the timeline of events, her ultimatum, her infidelity, her financial recklessness, her lies to mutual friends. I included carefully selected excerpts from public records, things anyone could verify if they chose to look closer. I didn't embellish or dramatize. I didn't need to. The truth was damning enough on its own. Then, I mailed the letter to Amanda's estranged parents, people she had spent years deceiving with tales of how perfect her life was. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because they deserved to know the real story, especially after she had cut them off when they questioned her choices. I heard later, through whispers, that her parents confronted her, that they demanded answers she couldn't give, that whatever last shred of respectability she had clung to in their eyes finally disintegrated that day. Amanda didn't just lose her husband. She didn't just lose her home, her money, her career, her friends. She lost her family, too. And all of it, every painful, humiliating loss, was born from one arrogant belief: that I would submit, that I would roll over and accept whatever scraps she deemed fit to throw me. She never imagined I would walk away. She never imagined I would survive without her. But now, as Amanda sat alone in her tiny apartment, jobless, friendless, abandoned by even her own blood, I wondered if she finally understood the depth of her mistake. Maybe, just maybe, she realized what real suffering looked like. And still, the final nail in the coffin hadn't even been hammered in yet. That moment was coming, and when it did, Amanda would have no one left to blame but herself. The day I truly closed the book on Amanda didn't come with fireworks or grand gestures. It came quietly, peacefully, on an ordinary morning that started with nothing more than a cup of coffee and the sound of rain tapping against my windows. I sat at the kitchen table of my new home, a bright, modern place filled with light and warmth, nothing like the heavy, suffocating house Amanda and I once shared. There were no echoes of arguments here, no shadows of past mistakes, just space to breathe, to dream, to exist without fear of being belittled or betrayed. My phone buzzed once more. A final text from Amanda, short and almost pitiful. "I miss you." I didn't answer. I didn't even feel anger anymore. There was no satisfaction in seeing her like this. No gloating, no bitterness, only clarity, only peace. She had made her choices. She had built her reality. And now she had to live with it, just as I was free to build something better for myself. I looked out the window, watching the rain wash the streets clean, and realized I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope for the future. Hope for love that wasn't conditional. Hope for happiness that didn't depend on someone else's approval or manipulation. Amanda had thought I would submit or suffer. Instead, I chose myself. I chose freedom. And because of that choice, I was no longer trapped in a life of quiet misery, waiting for scraps of affection. I was living, truly living, on my own terms. In time, new opportunities found me. New friendships blossomed. Even love reappeared, this time pure, kind, and honest, without games or ultimatums. And the most beautiful part of it all? I never had to destroy Amanda to get here. She had done that to herself. All I had to do was walk away and never look back. As I sipped my coffee and listened to the rainfall, I smiled. Not because Amanda suffered, but because I no longer did. In the end, it wasn't revenge that saved me. It was letting go. Sometimes the greatest victories aren't loud. They're quiet mornings. They're soft rain. They're the deep, unshakable peace of knowing you're finally free. And that feeling was the sweetest victory of all.